Hello, my friends. Today we are starting right away with the Kherson direction because Russian forces have significantly increased the activity here and are starting to divide Kherson into parts, destroying bridges to capture it piece by piece. To do this, they are cutting off all logistics routes, and yesterday's repeated strike on the bridge is more evidence of that. Ukrainian forces also report that the activity of FPV drones has increased several times compared to previous months. This clearly indicates that the Russians have begun preparing for a major offensive on the right bank and ultimately Kherson. As we can see, the situation in this area has now become extremely difficult after damaging the main bridge. It's likely the Russians will now try to gradually break through to the islands, build up their forces there, and then push from the island directly to Kherson. Unfortunately, the situation here is grim, and even though Russia's offensive remains intense in the Kostiantynivka and Pokrovsk directions, they've still managed to find reserves to continue the efforts here as well. So today, activity in the Kherson direction could mean one of two things. Either it's a diversion aimed at forcing Ukraine to redeploy its reserves to Kherson while Russia strikes somewhere near the border, or they simply have so many troops that the Kherson offensive is real, will keep going, and within 1 or 2 months they'll also escalate their push along the border. For now, it's a big question, but one thing is clear: Russia still has a large number of reserves, and the extremely high activity along the entire front line hasn't stopped for more than a year. It's only growing. Meanwhile, in the Zaporizhzhia direction, we are also seeing a rise in activity. Russian troops continue advancing toward the village of Stepnohirsk and are shelling nearby frontline villages. At the same time, Russia admitted that Ukrainian forces pushed them out of a district of Stepnohirsk. During the last 6 days, the Ukrainian army expelled Russian forces from the third microdistrict of Stepnohirsk. On the other hand, Russian forces made new advances inside Plavny and north of Kamensk. So, the Ukrainian military is launching counterattacks and trying to push Russian troops back, but at the same time, this also confirms that Russian forces have indeed reached the outskirts of Stepnohirsk a few days ago and even managed to gain a foothold there. Now we are watching to see how events will develop next. The fighting here is ongoing. In the Velika Novosilka direction, Russian forces continue trying to break through near Maliyevka, storming Timirivka, and advancing near Zelene Pole. However, there have been no changes over the past 24 hours. Ukrainian forces have managed to stop the advance. In the Novopavlivka direction, Russian troops keep pushing across the fields toward the city, and there are also reports of attacks near Dvorichna, assaults on Filia, and renewed breakthroughs from the village of Tolstoy toward Zeleny High. That's because Ukrainian forces had recently pushed the Russians out of the village, and now the Russians are trying to retake lost positions. Fighting also continues for control over Voskresenka. Half of the village remains under Ukrainian control. So far, no changes have been recorded over the past day. In the Pokrovsk direction. The situation remains extremely difficult. Russian forces continue storming Volodymyrivka and the village of Zaporizhzhia, formerly known as Nikonorivka. They're also advancing on the outskirts of the city of Rodinske, fighting for Krasny Lyman, pushing near Novoekonomichne, assaulting Lysivka, the outskirts of Pokrovsk, Udachne, and making breakthroughs near Kotlane. So far, there have been no new successful breakthroughs, but the level of activity, both in assaults and shelling, is so intense that there is no talk of improvement. Unfortunately, all Ukrainian counterattacks in this area have failed, as we see no progress near Ryazine, and the Russian forces are trying to advance every single day. In addition, the shelling situation is severe. Even in the city of Bilitske, people report that the area is being shelled all day long. In the Kostiantynivka direction, Russian troops are assaulting Alexandru Shultine, trying to break through toward Ivanopilya, attacking Sherbinivka, Stepanivka, and Poltavka. They're also already pushing out from Yablonivka, attempting to expand their control beyond the village. However, for now, the Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks, and no changes have been observed on the front line in the past 24 hours. In the Kramatorsk direction, Russian forces are shelling Drushkivka and Kramatorsk and advancing toward Novomarkove. While the level of activity along the front line here isn't the highest, it's clear that they're also trying to push forward in this area, stretching Ukrainian forces across even a broader front. In the Siversk direction, Russian troops are assaulting Serebryanka and trying to break through from the direction of Grigorivka. However, as before, all attacks are being repelled and there are no major changes. The fight continues for control over positions. In the Lyman direction, Russian forces are assaulting Shandrigolova and Seredny and trying to break through near Kharkivka. Activity here is quite high, but so far they have been unable to advance further. In the Borova direction, Russian troops are attacking Boguslavka, Nova Krugliakivka, and Cherneshina. However, all attacks are currently being repelled and there have been no changes on the ground. In the Kupiansk direction, Russian forces are advancing toward the outskirts of Kupiansk and across the fields from Stepova Novoselivka. However, activity here is currently not very high and all Russian assaults have been unsuccessful so far. In the Dvorichna direction, Russian troops are pushing toward Mitrofanivka and Dvorichansk. Russia's plan to seize Kharkiv region is gradually being put into action. While they are not showing intense activity in this area, and they are slowly managing to advance and gain ground in Kharkiv region. In the area around Kharkiv itself, things are relatively quiet for now. Russian forces are not launching new assaults here, and the number of shelling is low compared to other directions. However, in the Vovchansk area, attacks continue, and they're also pushing toward Vovchansky Hutory. But over the past 24 hours, they have made no gains, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Sumy direction, Russian forces continue pushing near Novomykolaiivka, Vodolakhy, below Vody, and across the border. Activity here is fairly high, around 20 assaults per day, and if Russia really plans to intensify its offensive here within a month, activity may double, allowing them to push toward Sumy again. So for now, we wait and see how the situation develops. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has stated that they still want to support Ukraine.
Well, I'll be clear by stating this administration does not want a quick fix. This administration wants a long lasting, enduring peace in the region. We want to continue standing shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine as Ukraine calls for a ceasefire that is comprehensive, that is full, that halts any assault on civilians, on critical infrastructure. The United States knows, and this president has been very clear, that in order to get there, we have to continue to see direct talk, as we saw in Istanbul. We have to continue with a push for a comprehensive, unconditional ceasefire that will result in a negotiated peace. The secretary has said on multiple occasions that means both sides may need to make decisions that they are willing and able to make that will result in the peace, security, and prosperity for their citizens. The United States stands closely in ensuring that we can see an enduring peace, a lasting peace, and we will not turn away during this moment of need.
But as we know, Ukraine has already made its choice and agreed to stop the war. Meanwhile, Russia is demanding for regions and much more. So the war has to continue. Friends, share your thoughts about this in the comments. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.